Okay, you can all still hear me, right? Shake your hand or whatever if you can hear me. Awesome. Okay, well, let's get started. I had a fantastic week last week. I got an opportunity to go to Los Angeles, and I have a mentor. I've told you before about him. His name is Ted McGrath. He works with helping people bring out their story and bringing out the part that's so important for other people, and also to help me scale up what I'm doing here. I was able to spend 3 days doing that and came back, and we did sessions on all day Friday, and then at 3 in the morning I left for Maryland, and I got to meet with this wonderful lady. I think you all recognize her, most of you. If you don't, her name is Ayama Van Zant, and she is probably the biggest source, you might say, of the people that come and see me. And so we had a wonderful opportunity. Believe it or not, we get up there, and I spent 4 hours with the Intervision women, and we missed you, Lydia. Too bad you got snowed in. And the fact that the snow just came down, that also prevented Ia from, I call her Ia, from coming and for most of it. But she did make it before it was over, and we got an opportunity to talk, and it was pretty exciting. And for those that are with the Ultimate Healer program, you'll be excited too. I'll tell you some more stuff that we're going to be doing with her. Tonight, though, one of the things that was revealed to me maybe a month, maybe 2 months ago, and it was about the term generations. What happened was I was working with this woman, and she kept going, well, I think this is from a past life. And most of you know, I don't believe in reincarnation because I don't believe that we need more than one body, physical body. But that being said, there is another aspect about these things that is important to know. Let's see if we can get this thing here to work. There we go. So our goals tonight are to reveal who you are. And we're going to go back a bit. We're going to go back before the earth started. And we're going to cover some of those areas about your origin. Second thing, quest for your earth experience. There is a quest going on, and it's kind of exciting. You have a fellowship if you follow the Lord of the Rings or anything like that. There's usually a group that will go and seek a certain thing. Well, your group is your 5.5 parts. But also, there's a quest for this earth experience. I'm going to kind of try to go over that real good too. So write down your questions. So when you get time or want to know something, then we will go over those areas. Understanding your choices. Believe it or not, we've heard this from a lot of different people, but the reason that you're experiencing the things that you are in your life is because of your choices. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing, doesn't mean that it's necessarily a good thing, but the choices, we do have agency. And agency isn't always free. It's kind of exciting when you look at it from a different point of view. Now, of course, we know about the unseen forces against us, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. I'm not trying to push religion or anything else like that on this. I just want to make sure that everybody understands, and this is from my point of view, from the point of Tom Heintz, and I have a lot of, I believe, things that back up what I'm saying, which is why I think it's important for you to have this information. Another thing is becoming your own archangel. Now, an archangel, a lot of times, there's a lot of people that go out and look for that archangel to find help, Michael or whoever, that is out there. Angels have different responsibilities, and so we're going to kind of cover that a little bit too, and then receive tools for your journey out there. It's called the hero's journey. Anybody ever heard about that? Raise your hand. Okay, so it's a process that we go through that helps us to overcome, and usually there's a pit moment at the bottom and it moves forward. That's where this came from. Also, I noticed that Ted McGrath, that's where he got his inspiration for creating the story in your life. Why do we need to have this kind of thing? Well, the answer to that really is we see this person who's so successful, who's doing everything that we would love to do, and we think, how did that happen? How did they get there? Or worse yet, I don't think I'd ever be able to do that, because we don't understand that everybody has been through this cycle, your journey. So we have the educational patterns, and this is what was really interesting to me when I heard about this generational thing. Now, generations, I believe, are, well, some people would call them past lives, but they're not with a physical body. Now, if you look at things, the way that we do things on the earth or pretty much anywhere, when you're learning something, you're going through different levels. You start at kindergarten, usually when you go to school, and you go through 6th grade. That's called what? Elementary school, correct? The next one will be 7th through 9th, or depending on what grades they are. That's either middle school, junior high. Then you go to high school, which would be 10th through 12th grade. And of course, then you would have that graduation pop up there. That particular segment allowed you to move forward to another part of your life. Okay, if you don't qualify or you don't work on something down here, then what they do is they will repeat it and work with it. You know, unfortunately, a lot of people will drop out. Well, it keeps them from accomplishing their graduation for that particular deal. But what we know is that when we graduate, that qualifies you for the next level, which would be probably college. Now, you could go into the workforce, and I'm not saying that there's not a whole lot of other ways to learn, but I'm doing this from the traditional standpoint because I want you to follow along with me. Elementary school, middle school, high school, graduate. Next one, college, association, college, maybe a bachelor's degree, master's degree, a doctorate, and graduate. And what this does is this gives you the pattern of the way that things go. So we have life, we have, you know, well, I suppose I should put 0 up to 18 years old, and that's usually this area over here, this graduation from being here. And then we go 19 to 40 is usually when that bar keeps being raised higher and higher, especially as you get older yourself. Suddenly, those people at our age 40 and above are not so ancient. And then, of course, we've got 41 to 65, and I put 65 is because that's when a lot of people retire. We look at that kind of as another segment, and of course it goes another, but I ran out of space on my screen here. But I wanted you to get the idea of we have a pattern. One of the things that I noticed was, oh, there's my graduation. Now it's moving. There we go. So let's go here. I want you to understand that you always have existed. Once again, we start at an intelligence level. We were intelligences. Then we became to the spirit level. In my beliefs, I believe that the intelligence level, we've always existed. There's many different higher, lower, smarter, less smart. I mean, there's different levels. I believe that we are literally the spirit children of our Heavenly Father and our Heavenly Mother. I believe there's two. I believe that that's why we're made in man's image. We have a Heavenly Mother as well as a Heavenly Father. We became spirit children of them. You'll notice that there's the levels here. Next one is when we graduate again, from intelligences to spirits to body. That's because we need a physical body now to combine with us to create the soul. What's the next level? I don't know. There's a bunch of them. I have some ideas. But I wanted you to think about this. I do believe in ministering angels, that we don't just sit around up there and twiddle our thumbs because we're constantly on a progressional thing here. So I put this out here. I created this chart years ago, back when I was calling myself the Emotion Therapy Solutions. Then Dr. Nelson suggested we not put therapy in there. But what I'm doing here is I'm giving you a generational or an ancestral pattern where here's you right here, and you have your parents, and you have your grandparents, and you have your great-grandparents, and it just keeps on going, doesn't it? And you have your kids. When I talk about this, I'm going to talk about this a sec because I want you to understand this process. Everybody proceeds or processes or advances at a different rate. It depends on them. It's not a matter of having to compare or anything else like that. But everybody goes through a different process when they are learning. If we were to go back and look at the educational one, you know, you get up to the college level, pretty much everybody has the same stuff as you go through high school. When you get to high school, you get to choose some alternative classes usually. And there's some other stuff that you can learn along the way. And when you get to high school, you get to choose college. And so you're looking at college and you're saying, okay, so what do I want to learn? Thank goodness we don't all want to be the same thing. You know, it allows variety because each one of us is an individual. When I put this ancestral chart up here, the reason I did that was because any one of these could be your ministering angels. I mentioned this before. We have two different species. We have humankind, we have angel kind. There's other kinds out there. There's the planets. All of these beings that God created, he gave them agency. Because of the need for each one of them to progress. Even the world is going through a progressional state, but each one of them has a process. When we are down here on the earth, we need help. We need protection. We can't see everything. Like I use quite frequently, I use like my left hand is my physical body. It has limitations. It can only see certain things. It can only hear certain things. But the spiritual part of us, the inside that fits like a glove and activates and animates physical body, is our spirit body, and it can see all directions. But what we don't see, well, the subconscious actually does see it, is the ministering angels that are there to help us. But you have other things that you have done when you were a ministering angel before you came and received your physical body, and the same thing with your parents. You could have ministering angels that are your kids or your grandchildren that have not yet been born, and that's a feasibility also. Maybe we'll have to come back to this. Let's move forward here on this. This is your existence. And might make a little bit more sense here. So we got a line here. This is your timeline of your existence. And of course, it goes on both directions to infinity. Here is your current life here. This is the earth life. Your veil of forgetfulness is the meat suit we call a body. And that prevents you from remembering things from before. And also, this is the opportunity, this is where you're going to receive that physical body. In this just one little moment. And I guess one of the main reasons I want you to understand this is that I want you to understand how successful you've been so far. You have continually progressed to this point, just like in school. Different things that we accomplished as a spirit, intelligence before that, and then as a spirit, each one of these little levels brings you closer to your graduation. This part here is called your first estate. But I got the impression that there was like 7 different grades that you've gone through to get to the point where you've graduated to receive this physical body. And there's probably going to be other stuff afterwards. Mine tested that said there was going to be about 8. One of the things that you're dealing with right now is when you come down to the earth, just like you would be going to college, you choose the things that you're going to experience here. I think you're given a directory just like you would be in a college, and you pick the classes you would like to do. We don't have a stinking clue how hard it's going to be. But we do know that we're looking for results. That's the way you would normally do it, right? You would want to work with a certain class, and you know that there's certain requirements for you to achieve that. Okay, so that's where we're going with this generational thing. The generations are the different classes that you've been through and that you have graduated from and bringing you up to this point. Doesn't mean that when you come here, would you know everything you need to know when you go to college? Absolutely not. You're not even sure that you're in the right degree that you're looking for, but you are looking to progress. And so when you come to this earth, you choose what you want to have based on the results you would like to receive. And these are kind of things that I went over with intervisions, but this is the generational part that I didn't understand before. So now when I think of past lives, I still don't believe in reincarnation, but I do believe that we have been through different grades where each one of these moved us closer to where we are now. Questions so far?
Tom, I don't have any doubts. I just have a different belief system. And yet I could hear what you're saying, and you keep saying you don't believe in reincarnation, and I get that, but I have a different belief system when it comes to this. And all the classes that you're talking about, to me, are continuations of you awakening and evolving, because we're all here to evolve. That's what I believe. We're here to evolve from one class to the other, as you put it. But, you don't believe in reincarnation. I get that. It doesn't make me or break me in the class. You know what I mean?
Oh no, it's not intended to.
But I do know about the veil of forgetfulness, and I do know about when you come here, you get free will, and so that's what you forget, who you are, and you come here into this body to experience what it is that you need to learn, the curriculum that you agreed upon to
Correct.
come here. So I get that. I get that. But I got you. I'm with you.
Okay. No, I appreciate the feedback, because this was meant to be a discussion also. This is not meant to be the end-all type thing. This is the MasterMind program. So we're going over a concept. One of the reasons I brought this up was because I was finding that some people are bringing certain things with them from a past generation. I was one of those people. When I couldn't believe it, I'm going, wait a minute, I thought we started fresh once we got here. How come I'm having an issue when
no, we don't.
Yeah, but I brought some stuff with me. And
it's either historical, generational, and your explanation of the generational is what you got going here, and I get that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes, and let's take it back a little bit here. Let's see if I just go like this, and let's go back to this one right here. Okay, so let's restart our slideshow here from the current slide. That means I got to go through everything again. There we go. There we go. And so when you receive something that is trapped, it could also be from something that was generational from somebody else. One of the beautiful things about families, I believe this very, very much, is that this is a group of people that you were connected to, but we chose our lineage. I test that most of my choices came through my dad's side of the family. Now, I believe that in something that I received, it's called a patriarchal blessing. It told me that I chose my parents, which I thought was rather interesting too. That's pretty much the generational thing that I wanted to go over. Is there something else that somebody wants to say or comment on?
Tom, on the next slide, you had said spirit form times 7 and physical body times 8. So what is that times 7 and times 8?
I ask questions on everything. When I tested this, because I always ask that, well, how many is there? I want to know approximately. Give me a guesstimation. Now, I did get the impression that this was from the spirit form, and before was intelligences. So at this point, somehow that was a spirit, and I don't understand it all. I do know that I have a Heavenly Father and a Heavenly Mother, and that's where the spirit, creation, where we became spirit forms. But there was apparently 7 grades. Let's put it that way. Maybe there's 7 different parts that allowed us to come to our first estate. This other part is our second estate. And actually, a lot of times, it's talked about that this is our testing group. This is the big exam that would help us to understand whether or not we accomplish our second estate. Now, who knows? Maybe there's a third estate. When I put onto this one here where there's generations with physical body times 8, I was actually pretty surprised. I wasn't sure. I don't know what that means. It doesn't, what that allows us. Geez, I did that again there. What was going on with that particular thing? I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but I told you everything I know about it.
And in your testing, were you testing that for yourself specifically, or are those numbers the same for everyone?
Well, I think it's pretty much, it's kind of a pattern. So let's look at the regular grade system that we have now growing up through school. It's usually kindergarten through high school. Now, there could be many variations of that or combinations along the way, but I think it's kind of a pattern, as the impression I'm getting. I tested it for myself, but I also tested it for others, and that's the impression that I got was, and in fact, I'm testing as we talk, that is true, in the least in the way that I am conceiving of it. Now, on the other one, it says there's 8. Is there more? Is it something higher? I think you continually are going to progress and go higher and higher and higher on different things that will make a change. Everything is, maybe this is a good spot to talk about our past pivotal points, the PPP, times when things that we do make a difference. And a lot of times I think that we lose sight of what we're doing here because it's like you can't see the forest for the trees. It's so close. Everything's happening. We can't figure out why. It's like being put into, they've got a lot of movies out there, the Bourne Ultimatum, or the Jason Bourne, where he is trying to figure out, he's got amnesia. He can't figure out what's going on. He's got this journey trying to figure out who he is. Ultimately, he finds out that he planned this whole thing. And the person that he was at that time was not a good person. This was his particular deal. I'm wondering if it's not very similar for us when we come down here, because we choose the things that we're trying to figure out, and because we are struggling to figure that out and we don't always have what we need, then a lot of times we go sideways, it seems like. But there is always a guiding hand in there, and that's the thing that we don't always realize, is that there's a plan that's there. One of the things that I experienced over this last weekend, over this last week or so, is I have on my back this one little spot that's been there for years, and a lot of times you can squeeze stuff out of it, and I know it's not nice to talk about, but what happened was this thing clogged up, and it became an abscess, and it started to go across my back, and it just kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And I mean, not heavier, but it hurt more and more because the pressure was building up. And I was frustrated with that, and I couldn't figure out why couldn't I get that thing to let go. I even tried to put a needle in it myself to try and lance it. I couldn't get the needle to go in. It was so hard. And I dealt with that in LA. I had somebody come and give me a massage, and the massage was so painful in that area, especially because my body was hurting and the infection was spreading throughout my body. So I got home on Thursday. And I tried to get myself, I had a friend who's a surgeon, and I said, can you come and lance this thing before I leave? Because I only had till 3 in the morning till I had to take off again for Maryland. And he said, no, I can't. I've got other things that are planned, and I don't have everything that I need to do it. And I was a little miffed, you might say, a little bit, because I'm going, so what am I supposed to do? And so I said, well, I'll just do another session on myself and see what I can do. And that's all I can do. So I did the session, and then I flew to Maryland, and I got there on Saturday. I didn't do my presentation until Sunday. And so Saturday evening, I decided, well, I got to go get something to eat. I think I'll go check out maybe some clothes or something like that and do a little shopping. So I plugged into my GPS, and I went to this place where Ross's was there, and and I like Ross. And so I drove there, and where I parked in this little mini mall, it was right there in front of an emergency care place. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, out of curiosity, I wonder how much it would cost me to go have this thing taken care of. So I walk in the door, and it's about, 4 o'clock, maybe 4:30. And there's just one person standing there, or behind the desk. It's a guy, and I said, I'm just curious. I've got an abscess in my back. It's really painful. There's a lot of pressure there. How much would it cost for me to have this done? And he says, well, I know there's a $100 visit charge. And then he said, just a minute, let me go find out. So he goes back, and he comes back, and he says, it'll cost you $335. And I'm thinking, that's a lot of money to spend to have that done. I thought about it for 10 seconds, and I'm going, can you do it right now? And he said, yes. And so I went back there, and they lanced this thing. They had to cut it, and to try and release all the stuff. And I was watching YouTube videos the night before trying to figure out, if it wasn't on my back, if I'd have been up or anywhere else I could get, I'd have probably cut the dang thing, just trying to get the release of the pressure. But it went back there, and there was no pus inside of it. It was all blood. And I'm like, Okay, so that doesn't even make sense. Why would that be? In fact, she was pretty confused too. And she finally, I mean, she was reefing on this. You gotta see this thing. It's like a big bruise. She was reefing on this thing. She finally got a little enough to get a culture, and so they can send that in. And then she stitched me up and put me back together there and got me some antibiotic. And in fact, I tested to make sure I got the right antibiotic. She gave me 3 different choices. And then I walked out of the place, and I was able to, function. And I thought, wow, how much is this like our life? We have something that's been there for a really long time, and all of a sudden it gets messed up. And I thought, what have I been doing? Well, I've been trying to get the Ultimate Healer program out, and I'm trying to do all these things. Everything was on my shoulders. And I thought, wow, there's symbolism right there as far as what this means. Now, since that time, it has been great. It has absolutely, all that pain that I had up in there, I'm sure the antibiotic made a big difference. And it's a little tender when I push on it. But that's sometimes what we need to do, is we need to invest in ourselves, because that is what's going to release the pain. I don't know, that was a lesson to me. Comments, questions, what do you have for me, folks?
So I put in the chat that Total Recall, an old Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, has the same
Yes.
plot or theme that you described for the Jason Bourne movies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting to think along those lines, because and the additional part, that my favorite part of Total Recall, and I haven't seen all of the Jason Bourne ones, so I don't know if this one came out, is that it's not so important who you were at the time you made the plans, but who you choose to be once you go through the process. As you go through the process, who you choose to be now is the main thing that's important. And we have the ability, we have the free will to make that choice all along our journey.
Absolutely. I'm looking for my chat, and I don't see that here. I saw it before. Let me see here.
On mine, it's at the bottom of the screen next to participants and share. But I don't know about anyone else's.
That's where mine is.
What was that?
On the bottom of the screen.
The bottom of the Zoom screen?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I've got 3 different screens going here. Yeah, I know. I usually see the chat, and I'm just, let me see if it's under manage participants. Let's see. I'm looking around. Where is it going to show up? I don't see it. Huh. Well, that is crazy. So I apologize for not seeing that chat.
No worries.
Usually I do. Anybody else have any comments?
I have one more. Early on, you started a sentence with "we were" or "could have been," and then you went on to something else. And it was in the time when you were, I think, talking about how we started out with intelligence and then became spirit. And I was thinking you were headed towards saying ministering angels or whatever, but I'd like to know the rest of that sentence if you can connect with that thought again.
That would be awesome. So one of the things that on the ministering angel part of it, I believe that we are here to help each other. One of the neatest things about being back at this class that I did in LA was we did a lot of peer coaching, which means that we just broke into 2s and 3s, and we helped each other to work on problems that we were finding. And then, of course, then they had the coaches coming around and helping the group, the individual little groups. Well, I believe that it's kind of the situation that we're dealing with when we have ministering angels. Ministering angels it's a title. It's not actual angels. You are ministering angels. That's humankind coming to help other humankind. And it's a title that we receive. And the key word is ministering. We're there to help and do what we can. Now, of course, as angels, we can't, if we are a ministering angel, we can do everything we can to the point where, once again, the person has agency. And unless they release us to be able to help them, then that's what makes the difference. But you go through different experiences as a ministering angel. One of the, I've mentioned this before, but maybe this is a good place to do it. When I first discovered that particular situation was when I had a young man here who was only 19 years old, and we ran into something he had, it was a psychic trauma. So more than one emotion happening at the same time that had happened 27 years earlier. Now, first of all, I thought I'd screwed up. I just figured I hadn't added the time up correctly. And then when I checked it again, it sure enough was 27 years earlier. And here he was only 19. And at that particular time, it just popped into my head. I'm going, he was a ministering angel for somebody. Well, it turned out he was a ministering angel for his father. And I happened to know his dad. And so what I did was I texted him and I said, so what happened to you? What was going on when you were at such and such a time? So 27 years ago. And he was just after his parents had separated because his mother had cheated on his dad. So there was no good feelings between those parents. And he was living with his mom because he knew she needed him. And yet dad would come and pick him up every single day and say, you ready to leave her? Are you ready to come live with me? Ready to come get out of here? And it was one of the biggest struggles for him in his life. Well, his son, as a ministering angel, before he was his son, was seeing this conflict going on, and he was he actually had a psychic trauma that he had created, and it stuck with him. So that was when I first hit that. And then since that time, I've run across multiple books that have near-death experiences where they talk about, coming out of their body, they're on an operating table or whatever, and their body leaves the spirit leaves the body, and they suddenly can see all these angels, but they don't really know. There's people. They don't look like, they don't have wings and all that stuff. There are actually people that are standing there. And they may be in white. They may, depends on the situation. But this particular guy, he came out and he saw three men. And they were standing there, and the two on the outside were trying to comfort the one in the middle. And you would think that if it was, why would he have a problem if he was an angel or acting as a ministering angel? And it was almost like they were trying to train him. They said, it's okay, calm down. He's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. And he looked at the outside too, and they had beards, and the one in the middle didn't. And later on, after he was okay, his body did re-enter, his spirit did re-enter his body. Later on, when he was doing genealogical work, he saw the pictures of the two men on the outside. So he recognized them, but he never did figure out who the center one was until after one of his sons, who had been born since that time, had grown up, and sure enough, he recognized him as that third angel. So that angel was having problems. He had a psychic trauma or some kind of issue. So that's, things like that kind of support the things that I was discovering. And since then, that's happened quite frequently. Does that make sense? I don't know if I answered the question or not, but what else you thinking?
I'm just thinking of the people who are born with severe disabilities and stuff.
Okay.
Or the ones that end up serial killers and stuff, things like that.
Are the ones that what?
End up like serial killers.
Okay. Well, there's a couple different theories on that one too. You'll notice that lately we've had a lot of Down syndrome and a lot of, there is the belief that the special spirits are been saved for a lot of, last days. When they come down here, they're not being tested to see if they are qualified. If you're unable to function correctly, it's a pass. You got the body, you didn't have to be tested. But who is tested? It's everybody else around you. It's the people that are taking care of them. It's a special woman who has a child who's autistic or Down syndrome or any kind of a disability, because they don't go move on. They stay pretty much with the family. And so this is a lifelong obligation. And I look at those people and I think, oh my gosh, how great are they that they were trusted to have this special spirit in their home. Now, it hasn't always been looked at in that way. But when you look at what is going on, so there's one, once again, it's a near-death experience story. And maybe some of you have read this book. Let's see. Is it Barbara Eady?
Yes.
Okay. So she talked about seeing people from a different point of view. In other words, we see them as a drunk down here in the gutter or whatever the thing is that we're experiencing. And yet that was the part that motivated them to create a certain foundation or something like that to help them. I had, and it's not, we don't have enough.
It's called Embraced by the Light.
There you go. There you go. Embraced by the Light. I love that. I go through that periodically just to have that experience, because she asked specific questions. In fact, she was the one that turned me on to the fact that there was no reincarnation, because that was a question she asked. And since then, other books have filled in the gaps, and that's kind of where I was going with that. Okay, so we're doing a wrap up, folks. What else? Any other questions that we have? Once again, right after this, we're going to do the Ultimate Healer class. We're going over Dr. Nelson's stuff, the emotion code and the body code, answering any questions that you have while you're working with that. So remember, that's the other link, and you got a password on there. So any other questions?
Tom, you had at the end here mentioned past pivotal points. Can you just say what those are?
Sure. A past pivotal point, I call them PPPs, are times in your life, and usually it's this life here that we're talking about. I guess it would be from any of those times, because once again, agency is everything. Agency is of utmost importance. So when you make a decision and you choose a certain path or a certain flavor or a certain thing, your energy, it's a focus change, right? It could be. And it could be a past pivotal point is where something you did changed the direction of your life. Does that make sense? Okay, so, and when that happens, I'm always reminded of, I just was on, 4 different flights in this last 2 weeks, or last week even. And you can't just take off and the pilot says, okay, we're going to go this compass coordinate and pins it and, and just forgets it, because you won't make it to the place you're going to go to. There has to be hundreds of little corrections along the way that will ultimately take you to your destination. Now, sometimes what we do is we have to figure out if there was a past pivotal point that needed to be changed or corrected, I would say. I mean, you've already made the, it's once you make a decision, it's done. You can't go back and necessarily change it, but you can reset the course, and you can figure out what you need to do to go in another direction. Does that make sense, Barbara?
Yeah, it does. And when you say agency, do you mean free will, or is it more than that?
Well, free will isn't always free. So in other words, you can have, I say agency because there's not free agency. There is consequences for the choices you make. But you have the ability to make those choices, and that's the important part. And it could be a matter, it's your choice. You choose to do something, and you have the right to make that choice. Unfortunately, you also have to deal with the consequences. And of course, you want good stuff to happen. That's one of the reasons you choose it. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Anything else before we wrap this one up?
Hey, Tom, is
Yeah.
there some place where we could get all the replays?
I'm working on that.
Okay.
I'm going to have this one. I'm going to go through and edit it kind of, but I may not have to edit as much. The last time wasn't too bad. The time before was horrible because all my slides didn't work and everything else. I lost stuff, and And I know I discouraged a few people from moving forward with this because I couldn't figure it out. Hopefully this is one of the things I'm doing, is figuring it out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it out there where you can go and find these. And I'll put the ones that I have. Unfortunately, one of them did get zapped because I didn't do it right. Let's put it that way. So I'm learning. So fortunately, these are free. So you're not having to pay for my mistakes. So, okay, any other questions? Give me a couple days to edit these. I'm trying to make sure that we have slides so we can see them. Well then, I think we will wrap it up. Thank you everybody for being here. Finally, I can click on this and give you this final one here. Okay, well, we'll see the Ultimate Healers in the next hour here.
Thanks. Good night, everyone who won't be in the next meeting.